The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Jayson Tatum gets hurt, and it looks serious. The Jayson Tatum injury, which still don't know what it is. There's a lot of theories running around. It's a non-contact injury. If you didn't see it for some reason, he planted that right foot. It looked like he might have gotten hit up around the shoulder area, but it was basically a non-contact injury. He planted the foot, and then he went down and he went right for the back of his foot, right for the ankle area. And you can see he was kind of holding that back area that screams Achilles injury. And he wouldn't get up. He needed help to get up. He was in the wheelchair in the back. When we were allowed in the locker room area, he was in one of the back rooms at Madison Square Garden. Turns out his mom and I believe his stepdad were in there. So his family was around. Celtics medical staff was in there. He was nowhere to be seen in the locker room. Players said they didn't see him. They didn't talk to him. So just using some powers of deduction, that's not something that you normally see when it comes to an injury. If it's not serious, he might be out in the locker room icing, or it felt like he was being kind of kept away from everybody. I was waiting around to see if he would come out. Would he be on crutches? Would he be wheeled out? How would he come out? Could you get any sense of anything? Sometimes these things look bad and it's not as bad as you think, but he never reappeared that I could see. I haven't seen any video of him after the injury. So there's no kind of documentation of how he looks, what he's, his demeanor, any of that stuff. The only video that we saw was from the broadcast of him getting wheeled into the back, and he had his head in his hands. So right now it's just speculation. It could be an Achilles injury, and we're trying to figure out the severity of it. Is it a clean tear? Is it a partial tear? Is it something that can be repaired and is short term as far as, a couple of months? Or is it a full blown torn Achilles? Or is it potentially some sort of something else? Is it I don't know. It could be any number of things, but we know that we've seen that play before, and it screams Achilles injury. And the only hope to me is that it's not so serious that it costs him next season. This is the trouble with these injuries that happen here now in May. This is May. It happened on May 12th. These Achilles injuries, if it takes 6 months, 8 months, well, 6 months brings us into November, December, 8 months, January, February. We might not see Jayson Tatum until the All-Star break, which who knows? Who knows? This probably worst case scenario. That's probably where I would guess. Best case scenario is it's a strain. It's something that doesn't need surgery, a summer off, and he could be back. That could be a best case scenario, but I'm saying that more in a hopeful manner, as opposed to what I think the reality is. And I think the reality is a serious injury. I think no matter what, he's no longer playing, at the very least in this series. If for some reason the Celtics are able to come back and extend this series. I don't think he'll be back in this series. And even in a best case scenario, he's probably done for these playoffs. Even considering the way the injury looked, even if I'm wrong, even most of us are wrong, and it's a strain of some kind, even that puts his entire playoffs in jeopardy. So the Celtics are going to have to learn to live life pretty quickly without Jayson Tatum. So that's the most I can say. And as I'm talking, I'll give Twitter one more chance to, maybe Shams can come up with something. But I think it's telling. Yeah, nothing from Shams still. I think it's telling that Shams hasn't said anything. The newsbreakers haven't said anything. And it goes to the point, like, people ask me, like, find something. It's like, well, we try. But the way news breaks nowadays, agents and people within the organization, they go to one of like two people, and it's really just one person now. And there's not a lot of local newsbreakers anymore. And so usually it's Shams at this point, and there's nothing. He doesn't have anything. My understanding is that unlike maybe some circumstances when a visiting player gets hurt like this, they may take him right away to one of the local hospitals, especially in New York City. You've got two of everything. You get two NBA teams, two hockey teams, two NFL teams, two baseball teams. There's a lot of orthopedic people around town here that know how to diagnose and all of that stuff. And from my understanding, Tatum hasn't seen any of the people around here. This is all being handled in-house by the Celtics. They're taking care of everything. This way, no information gets out. No one on the outside has any access to any information. And when Joe Mazzulla spoke and said, lower body injury, MRI tomorrow, I think that's legitimately what we're going to get. We're being told nothing. And I think Tuesday is MRI day, and that will be there will be an official stance. Now, by then, maybe Tatum's people will leak something to Shams and we'll know. But the team is circling the wagons, and right now there's nothing, no information. Think about when Damian Lillard got hurt. We knew within an hour there are fears of this being an Achilles tear. So the Celtics are keeping everything quiet. There was a game to be played, and it looked like once again the Celtics had it, and then it looked like once again that the Knicks went on a heater that could not be stopped. There was a game. They did play. It wasn't just Jayson Tatum, although by the end it felt like Tatum was the only story. But once again, the Celtics looked good early. They got out to a big early lead, and the flow of the game was Celtics made a run. The Knicks had a little bit of an answer, and then the Celtics answered the answer, right? Celtics go on a run. Knicks make their little run, smaller run, 7-8 to, Boston would go on like a 13-4, and then Knicks would cut it down to like 7 or 8, and Celtics make another run. And they kind of went back and forth on that. Third quarter, Celtics get up 14. Once again, looking good. Here come the Knicks, make another run. And then the Celtics looked like they started to get a little confused defensively. The communication wasn't there. They lost Jalen Brunson a lot, and Brunson, for the first time this series, truly got going for an extended period of time, not just the fourth quarter. Once Brunson got going and Mitchell Robinson was in the game and they got a ton of offensive rebounds, Celtics were getting crushed on the second chance points. That combination was too much, and the Celtics just couldn't overcome it. All of a sudden, everybody on the Knicks was making shots. Brunson was making everything. Bridges started making everything. Anunoby was hitting 3-pointers. It got to the same. You got Karl Anthony Towns pitching in all of a sudden. Robinson keeping plays alive. The Celtics defense let them down in a big way. I had been touting all series long how the Celtics had been holding the Knicks to 90-something, 100 points, and they gave up 121 in this game. This is the defense, the Celtics defense at its worst. Anunoby had 20. Karl Anthony Towns had 23. Mikal Bridges had 23. Those games, you weren't getting all of those things at the same time. And then you have Brunson going for 39 and 12 assists. That's a tough one. And because the Celtics lost game 1 and 2, this type of game, you lost your margin for error. I said this on yesterday's podcast. The margin for error went away. The Celtics were unable to withstand the weird game where everything was going in, and they Brunson went off and all these other guys went off. By botching games 1 and 2, you now put yourself in a position where this weird game where the Knicks just had everything going, now you're down 3-1. And this is the why in the playoffs you have to take care of business when it's there in front of you. It's why you have to, when you have that 20-point lead, you have to handle your business in the fourth quarter of game 1. You have to handle your business in the fourth quarter of game 2, because now your back's against the wall, and now you've suffered an injury, and you're already dealing with Jaylen Brown's knee not being his absolute best. And now you're dealing with Kristaps Porzingis still not feeling his best. And so Tatum was there kind of carrying the team, and now he goes down, and here we are. Weirdness changes the entire complexion of the playoffs. You've got now the potential for the Cavs. They're down 3-1. Cavs could be bounced. You get Pacers Knicks in the conference finals. One of Pacers or Knicks are going to the NBA finals potentially if neither of the Cavs nor the Celtics can figure something out and come up with a kind of a miracle. But you have to handle your business when you have the opportunity. Games 1 and 2 were the missed opportunities. Game 3, a 14-point lead, still a good lead, but 9 minutes to go in the third quarter, up 14. Sure, there's a potential for that to that's not a stable lead at all. But the Celtics defensively, the way they lost Brunson was kind of bothersome, right? It was not great watching, confusion. Are you guys not the Boston Celtics? What's happening here? And a lot of this, I think, stemmed from starting with Kristaps Porzingis, who said he was feeling his, better, but clearly was not playing very well. He's been it's been disappointing. I'll put it that way. It's been disappointing for to watch Porzingis, to see him to literally disappear in game 1 because he just wasn't feeling well. And in game 2, same idea. Game 3, they didn't really need him, but he played well on defense. And game 4, they've needed him. They've needed him in these games. He's the key. He's the guy that unlocks so much against the Knicks. He's the guy that makes the switching impossible. The Celtics, I know I've said this a million times, but this is very, very similar to the 2023 playoffs where Brad Stevens said, you know what? We need that mismatch to go to. And Porzingis was going to be that guy. He should be that guy. He should have been that guy in this series. And he hasn't been there. Just hasn't. And the illness is an unfortunate thing, and some of it's not his fault. But with Porzingis, it's just if it's not one thing, it's the other. If it's not the ankle, it's the knee. If it's not the knee, it's whatever. It's something. And now it's an illness. And as I've said before with Porzingis, it's never just an illness. It's never just a turned ankle. It's always the weirdest, worst case scenario with these things. And it's just been difficult. It's been difficult. And having a healthy Porzingis in this series would have changed everything. The series might be over right now. I might be talking about getting ready for the Pacers if Porzingis was healthy. And Jaylen Brown, same thing. Jaylen did not play well in this game. I thought he tried to do too much. Early on in this game, I thought the Celtics were running decent offense, and then Jaylen was just running his own thing. It felt very separate. Jaylen felt very on a different page than the Celtics. And, I'll have to go back and look at it to double check just to make sure that I was seeing it right. But early in the game, especially, it very much felt like Jaylen was doing his own thing and the rest of the Celtics were moving the ball, and Derek White was the beneficiary. He had his first 4 3-pointers. Tatum was having an awesome game. Tatum's numbers in this game, if it wasn't for the injury, he was on his way to one of his all-time great. This still is one of his all-time great playoff games. 42 points on 57% shooting, 44 from 3 of 3 from the line, so 100% at the line. He had 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. He was everywhere, especially early on. It was a classic vintage Jayson Tatum stepping up kind of performance. But Jaylen was not good. I don't know what was going on with Jaylen, but just too much dribbling, losing the ball. We're back to the Warriors finals. We're back to trying to do too much and losing the ball. I thought that lesson had been learned.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game. Whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking up the excitement of an NBA matchup, finding great seats at a great price, though, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. With last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as the beginning of the game gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
The Dallas Mavericks get the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Cooper Flag. His flag will fly in Dallas. The Mavs get the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. We'll talk about what it changes. We'll talk about what Cooper Flag brings to the Mavs. We'll get into all of it, but let's just. Listen. Ownership and the front office, they may not deserve this. But you know who does? You, a Dallas Mavericks fan, listen to this right now, absolutely deserves to have good things happen in your life after the season the Mavs just went through. After being at the mountaintop of the NBA Finals, having a star to build around, and then all of a sudden, it getting pulled out from under you the next season because of reasons that have not been explained very well or not been explained well enough through multiple press conferences and secret meetings and all kinds of different things and the way that it was handled afterwards. Mavs fans deserve this in a way that I don't think many other fan bases did. Lots of people are going to be upset about this, that it's happening. We've already seen our friend Bill Simmons with these, come on, F this message on Twitter. We've seen a lot of people respond to this. And for the Mavericks, this is the first time they've moved up ever in the history of the Dallas Mavericks. If there's ever a time for you to believe that the NBA is rigged in any kind of way, to believe that maybe there were some other kind of motivations behind the Luka Doncic trade anyway, to send a star player to the Lakers in any kind of possible way. This is the outcome that would happen. The only one. This is Doctor Strange holding up the one finger. in so many different ways. This is Doctor Strange holding up the one that he looked up 14 million different kinds of scenarios that could happen. And this is the one. This is the one that makes it better for Mavericks fans. This is the one that makes it better for the franchise, for the city, makes it better for everybody involved. And there's so many ramifications that we'll unpack throughout the rest of this month, the rest of this year, up until the season starts. We'll talk about it. There's so many different things. But for now, Cooper Flagg will play for the Dallas Mavericks. He's one of the best prospects we've seen since Anthony Davis, Zion. Like, you're talking about a guy this good, that is supposed to be this good. And Isaac, he plays defense.
He does play defense. I think I was very clear on, I thought he was a better prospect than Zion. So, yeah, just coming out at his size, what he can. We get to talk about Cooper Flagg, man. Like, it's so crazy to think about. I mean, we've been doing this podcast long enough. We're the longest running Mavs podcast that's been doing this daily out there. All right. So we've been doing this pod daily since Dennis Smith Jr. draft. We were there for all the Luka draft stuff and Luka draft night. And it just one of those moments that you'll never forget. I mean, this was basically draft night for the Mavs in a way.
Yeah.
And to get a guy like Cooper Flagg, it just changes everything. You know,
Yes.
If I get the frustration towards the front office and it's like, dude, this sucks. Like, they don't deserve it. They may, all this stuff. I get all of that. I get the conspiracy theory stuff. I mean, heck, listen to our podcast from yesterday in which we're like joking about the conspiracy theories if Dallas wins it. And that's all that we'll hear about. I get all of that. But if this fan base ever needed this right now, it's right now. Like, these fans, the Mavericks fans in Dallas didn't have anything to do with what happened with the Luka trade and ripping their hearts out and taking your star player away from you. But man, like, what a win. Like, what a win to be able to bring in a new guy, a new stud of a player that is just, I mean, yeah, you want to win now. He helps you win now. You want a defensive team because you believe defense wins championships. He helps you do that. You want a young piece that's going to be here past Kyrie and Anthony Davis. Yes, I believe that. He's going to be that. Like, all of the stuff in one there. And now your fan base can get captivated by a new young star player that can play on the wing too. That, I mean, I'm fascinated by Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis lineups.
Yeah.
It's just, it changes everything.
It changes so much. It changes so many different things. It changes how the Mavs look at their team right now. I think Cooper Flagg makes this team right now. If Kyrie Irving comes back, he's got a player option. Kyrie Irving comes back, Anthony Davis is there. Whenever they're healthy, it helps them right now. Cooper Flagg can help in so many ways on offense as a playmaker. I've speculated that the Mavs, their need for a playmaker kind of goes down a little bit when you get Cooper Flagg because he can make some plays. Anthony Davis can. You've got all these different types of playmakers. They'd have to play a different type of offense than like the one player pounds the rock that we've seen in the past or that a lot of teams have been running. But you get a 6'9" player with a 7'1" wingspan who is going to be 18 and a half at the draft. He reclassified. So he's young too. He's coming in younger than Luka did when the Mavs got him. And so you get this young guy who's ready to win right now. This is the one sentence explainer from Rafael Barlow, Locked on NBA Big Board, which now will be an everyday listen. That will be an everyday listen for us whenever they talk about Cooper Flagg. He said, at 6'9", Flagg brings a combination of skill, versatility, and explosive athleticism that fills arenas and can handle the ball and operate at the high post, where he's a gifted playmaker, showcasing a knack for finding open cutters and easy scoring opportunities. Then he says, on the defensive end is where Flagg is special. He's the most dominant high school defender I've ever scouted and epitomizes the term game changer.
I love watching ACC basketball. I've hate watched Duke for many years of my life. But Duke is, kind of become the place where these star players are going. And so watching this Duke team this past year was a lot of fun, and tuning in for a lot of times to watch a Cooper Flagg, and he is just that good, like just that good on both sides of the ball. Just that, I mean, the help defense stuff, some of the on ball stuff. I mean, he started having the ball in his hands and trying to, take over games and stuff, later on. It was just, I don't know how to even process a 1.8% chance.
The Mavs had a 1.8% chance.
I mean, we lost our minds whenever, they got skipped over, which the thing to think about this too, they landed at 11 by a coin toss. They were tied with Chicago.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They won the coin toss. They got the 11th spot. Chicago got the 12th spot. And by landing at that 11th spot, obviously jumped up to 1 there. But when it goes to the commercial break and the 4 teams, you're like, holy crap. We were in a live show with other people in Locked On Network, and David Locke was in there. David had a whole Cooper Flag montage that he played before the lottery started with the jazz mock-ups and all the stuff, and just kind of rubbing in our faces. And they landed at 5 and we got flagged. So I asked him to redo that mock-up with the Mavs jersey. So that'd be good.
You're going to see a bunch of Photoshops. You're going to see a bunch of things. And Cooper Flag's going to bring in a different fan base now to the Mavericks that is going to follow him from Duke. It's obviously a huge fan base there. We also got Cooper Flag and Derek Lively. And that, even after Anthony Davis is gone, could be a front court of the future for the Mavericks.
The Timberwolves win over the Warriors in Game 4. They're up 3-1 in the series.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast.
The headline here, I should say, the final score is 7 points. If you didn't watch the game, it was a much bigger win than a 7-point win. It was, in fact, a 21-point game with 5 minutes left when Steve Kerr waved the white flag, brought a bunch of reserves in. The Timberwolves never fully did that, although Ant and Gobert were both off the floor at the end, and the Wolves ended up only winning by 7. Some concerning moments down the stretch there as they were, just kicking the ball away. But it skewed a bunch of these numbers, right? We're going to talk about the Wolves bench. We're going to talk about turnovers. It wasn't great early, but it was really bad late when it really didn't matter that much. So it skewed some of the overall box score stuff. So there's a lot to unpack beyond the box score in this game. We have to start, though, with Julius Randle. Julius Randle continues to just have a phenomenal postseason. And I've talked about him on almost every show over the last 3 weeks. And it's just incredible. He had a triple-double on Saturday in Game 3. This time out, he finishes with 31 points. He had 19 in the first quarter. I think he only had 1 bucket in the second quarter, but then he showed up big again late in this game. He knocked down his first 3 3-point attempts in this game. He had 31 points on 21 shots and really set the tone early for Minnesota. The first couple of possessions, the Wolves offense looked clunky. They had a forced shot. They had a turnover. Golden State was up, I think 5-0, 4-0 or 5-0. And then Julius Randle all of a sudden just started doing what he's been doing in the postseason, which is if he's open, he's going to knock down a 3. If he's got a one-on-one and somebody's, trying to crowd him and somewhat take away that 3-point shot, he's going to, get to the middle of the floor, dribble down to the 10, 12 foot mark and hit a tough leaner or fall away, really. That's what he's been doing. And also he's been just putting his shoulder down, getting into guys, including Draymond Green over the last couple of games, especially getting all the way to the basket. And he's hitting these runners off the glass that seem to go down every single time. And it's that assertiveness. And we talked about in the Lakers series, it was about, hey, when they put 2 on the ball with Ant and Julius gets the opposing defense in rotation and they're on their heels, he either gets a mismatch or he gets a rotating, member of the defense. He has to attack quickly and be decisive, take what the defense gives him, and quickly. In this series, Golden State has gone through different phases of how they put 2 on the ball. They generally haven't been as aggressive doing that against Ant. Game 3, they were, but that's also the Julius Randle triple-double game, and Ant was really good down the stretch in that game. In this game, they did a lot more zone, and that was partly what threw Julius off in the second quarter. But in the first quarter, the Warriors were trying to play it a little bit more straight up, and the Wolves were just running the offense to Julius Randle, and it worked great. Not something I ever would have thought I'd be saying, going back to, frankly, when the trade happened in September. But in the midst of, November and December, I would not have said, in mid-May in a game near, second round of the playoff series, the Wolves are going to run their offense intentionally through Julius Randle, not just because they have to, not because Ant's out or anything, just because they want to. That's what they were doing. And I talked about this on yesterday's show coming out of Game 3, was just playing Ant off the ball has worked so much better for Minnesota. And that was another thing they did in this particular game. And the assist numbers weren't great for Minnesota. The offensive flow wasn't great. I mean, they finished with 22 assists and 19 turnovers in this game. It was a lot more ISO ball. And at times the ball movement was really good, but it was really passes that were leading to drives. And I bet, I didn't pull exactly when all the assists happened, but I bet the vast majority of those 19 assists happened in the middle of the game. Second and third quarter is where a lot of those assists came, no doubt, especially the third quarter when they scored 39 points, because that's when the ball movement was crisp. It was humming around the perimeter, and the Wolves were getting the Warriors in rotation. And Golden State has a really good defense. We talked about that extensively on Monday. Like, this is a really solid, better than solid. Again, since the Jimmy Butler trade, this is, I remind you, was the best defense in the NBA post-trade deadline. And losing Steph doesn't really change that a whole lot. And so for the Wolves to hang 117 on them on 49+% shooting and 47% from three is really solid, better than solid. So Julius Randle's first quarter really set the tone. With all of that, though, Ant got out to a little bit of a slow start. They weren't getting a whole lot else. Like, Conley missed some shots early. Rudy wasn't getting involved. Minnesota was still down a point at the end of the first quarter. Second quarter, the offense was getting going for Minnesota, but the defense, there was no urgency. They weren't getting up into guys. Golden State was getting far too many free drives to the basket. When Rudy was off the floor, the paint defense was non-existent. There was no low man help from Minnesota. It was just the second quarter was really a debacle defensively. They gave up 32 points to a Steph-less Warriors team, and they were about to be down 5 at halftime, except for Anthony Edwards hits a three nearly at the logo over a double team. He had got the ball across the timeline with under 6 seconds to play in the quarter, and he pulls up and hits the three just prior to the buzzer, and it brought Minnesota to within 2 and gave them momentum. And I believe that momentum into the locker room and then out of the locker room in the third quarter was a major catalyst for what happened in the third quarter for Minnesota. They outscored Golden State 39-17 in the third. And as I mentioned a minute ago, it was about ball movement. It was about pushing the pace, being opportunistic, and knocking down open shots. And this is where the Timberwolves, Ant really got going, first of all, but then also the bench. And we're going to talk more about the bench here in a minute, but that was a really big piece of what happened in the third quarter of this game for Minnesota as well.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite teams or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into same-game parlays for a chance to win big. I've got some action on the PGA Championship this weekend. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
The Carolina Hurricanes, after Game 4 Monday night, have a 3-1 series stranglehold.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Hurricanes 5-2 Game 4 win, as now they have a 3-1 series lead on the Washington Capitals. Got to talk about Sean Walker's great game that includes his first ever playoff goal in his career. Frederick Anderson, once again, doing Frederick Anderson things, securing another win for the Canes. And then just looking overall at the total team effort, where the bend don't break mentality of the Canes helped propel them to another win, and now they're one win away from the Eastern Conference Final. So if everyone remembers the episode from yesterday and the fact of, content that I put out over the weekend after a Game 3 win, you know that Sean Walker had a very underrated game for the Hurricanes, and all her Rod Brindamore saying that, yeah, he's just been an underrated player pretty much all season, just goes and does his job, doesn't really get the praise, that you would see from the other guys on the rush, like a Shane Gostisbehere scoring a lot of goals, or, Brent Burns, or Chatfield and Orlov being the best, a consistent defensive pair all season. Of course, Jacob Slavin being the greatest defenseman in the NHL. But Sean Walker had a really good Game 3 that I think definitely needed to get emphasized. That's why I asked Rod Brindamore about it. And then you hear what Rod said following Game 3, and then you turn the page to Game 4, And Sean Walker has another magnificent game. Finally gets rewarded for a goal in the playoffs, which the crazy part is that was his first ever career playoff goal. And it was the 4-2 goal that gave the Hurricanes some insurance before Andrei Svechnikov scored the empty netter to ice the game in the third period. But just an overall, what a performance by him. Gets a goal and assist for a 2-point night. Just absolutely put on a show. And you look at just the fact that, too, he had 22 shifts in the game, 16 minutes and 35 seconds of ice time. Also had 2 blocked shots and 4 shots himself, which, if you look at the entire roster, that was third best outside of Jarvis and Taylor Hall, who both had 5 themselves. So Walker had himself an all-around a great game. And the fact that, he still had the least amount of total ice time, he still had a pretty good, decent number of shifts, and that's even including him seeing a lot of time with Jacob Slavin pretty much for a good part of the second period and the third period as well. And Rod Brindamore says just the way he played, he said he earned it and definitely earned some of the trust, from the team. And that really shows that if you put in the total team effort, do your job, and like what Rod Brindamore has been saying all season is, as long as you're doing your job and help pulling the rope and do what you need to do, and maybe if you're on the score sheet, that's fine. That's still just important. But if you're able to capitalize and get rewarded for your efforts, that goes a long way as well, and you'll get your added benefits of more ice time and put in different situations. And that's what you saw from Sean Walker. That's why he was playing top, pair minutes with Jacob Slavin. So could we see this be a precursor for potentially next season, because Sean Walker does have 4 years left on his current contract, where he signed a 5-year deal with the Canes this past offseason, making $3.6 million, which for me is still an absolute steal. This guy is really good, and this is someone that Shane Willis even said last year by the trade deadline that the Hurricanes should go get Walker, and they ended up going and just signing him that offseason. And the fact you still have another 4 years of him is really good. And the fact that it's on a steal of a contract like that, even with the cap going up next year, his contract, Gostisbehere's contract, what Hall's going to get next year, Chatfield and all, it gives the Hurricanes so much flexibility. And the fact that Walker all season's pretty much done his job, and you kind of see that progression of him just doing the little things. And is there some games where, him or Gostisbehere or whoever maybe, had a little bit more quieter game and kind of struggle a little bit? Well, it happens, especially for the defense, especially for guys who aren't used to the system. But you see that natural progression as the season goes along, and you see that with Walker. Now, after this season, you got another full offseason with him in the Hurricanes, system, which is just have him getting better. So I think the way he played in the playoffs so far has been good, but then you've seen that next step, that next level, especially in game 3, and now it's even in game 4, and that's why you see Rod give him those opportunities. So for me, that's why it's like, okay, Sean Walker has really put himself out there to be like, okay, this guy is hitting that next stride, hitting that next level. And that's why you see the Hurricanes being in a spot where they're, where he had a multi-point night, gets his first ever career playoff goal. So congrats to him on that. That's very huge to do that. And you can just tell by the celebration that he enjoyed it. And the fact that the guys loved it too, especially Jacob Slavin is the first one to get to him. And that just goes to show just how much of a family this team is, that even when a guy scores a goal, they're all going to celebrate like they scored the goal, because it's just that important. And more importantly, when it's in the playoffs, and now the Hurricanes are looking at, like I said, they're looking at the potential for another Game 5 victory, but you're up 3-1 in the series again. And the win on Monday night gave them 7 wins in the postseason this year. That's more than they had last year when they had 6 going into with round 2 against the Rangers, of course, having to come back from 3-0 down. But for a lot of people, you thought last year's lineup was absolutely loaded with what they had. And, a lot of people consider this being a transition year for the Canes. But now you're one win away from the Eastern Conference Final, and you beat last year's, everyone's thought, Stanley Cup favorite stacked roster that the Hurricanes had. But then this year, it's a little bit more adversity throughout the regular season. But now you're looking at a team who's fully clicking on all cylinders. And just to see, the depth of this team, where we're going to talk about later on in segment 3 of the show, where it's the total team effort from this year of a team who's had to kind of right a lot of wrongs, riding the ship a lot during the regular season, going through their storms, and just all they have to deal with. And now you're looking at a team that's really good on the power play, really good on the penalty kill, got solid goaltending, which we'll talk about next segment with Frederick Anderson. But it's just you see the guys like Walker, you see the guys like Gostisbehere, all these guys who are putting in the effort are giving you those more of the depth scoring that you definitely want to see, especially in the playoffs, and where you look at a team who's got 5 different goal scorers. Seth Jarvis getting another one. And, you talk about Taylor Hall scoring a very big goal for the Canes. Andrei Svechnikov with an empty netter. You're seeing a bunch of different guys putting the pucks on the net. They're kind of helping lead the way. And now you're setting yourself up to be in a very good spot for Game 5. And that's just, like I said, when you look at another game where the Hurricanes just smother the Capitals pretty much right from the outset, and now you're putting yourself to a spot where now it's like, okay, you go to Washington on Thursday, you take care of business, you're in the Eastern Conference Final, where people thought you weren't even going to make the playoffs, or okay, well, this is a team that could probably win a round, but they're going to struggle. And now it's like, now you're in the driver's seat. Now you're in control. And the way the skaters have been and the way the guys have been playing great team defense, great team scoring, you love to see it.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game. Whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking up the excitement of an NBA matchup, finding great seats at a great price, though, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. With last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as the beginning of the game gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Sometimes in hockey, you just got to throw logic out the window.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I went into this game terrified. The way Game 3 ended, I figured talking myself into Stuart Skinner playing well tonight was a fool's errand. Like, being in a relationship, that's on the way out, and it's simply a matter of when you're going to have the one last big fight, and then you're going to go your separate ways. That's how I felt about this game going into tonight. I expected Skinner to, that first Vegas goal, to hit you like a knife in the chest, and from there we would have 1,000 think pieces about how the Oilers failed to improve their goaltending room at the deadline. And instead, the Oilers as a team understood the assignment to the umpteenth degree. That is about as dominating a performance as you are going to see this time of year in the playoffs. And I know Carolina put together a really good performance against Washington earlier in the night, and Washington, to their credit, made the score a little more respectable than Vegas did. But Vegas is a significantly better hockey team than the Capitals. And we know Alex Pietrangelo is hurt. We talked about that on the preview episode of the show, with the crossover preview episode with Chris Gall, like about a week ago now, that Pietrangelo was hurt in that Minnesota series. He missed game 1 of this series, and it was a real question as to how effective he would be. But the Golden Knights are a really good hockey team. They won the Pacific Division. They have consistently been amongst the league's best since entering the league 7-8 years ago now. And I expected them to beat the Oilers in this series. And I felt that Vegas's defense, the advantage they had in Aiden Hill. And frankly, I liked their forward depth a little bit more. Once you got past their high-end guys, you got a 30-goal season out of Pavel Dorofeyev, for God's sakes. And you look at the Oilers, who struggled to get down the lineup production. And then speaking of down the lineup production, how about Adam Henrique with a pair tonight? That's the type of performance you're going to need if you want to make this happen in the long run. And when we talk about dominating performances, it's one thing to win 3-0, to shut Vegas out, to make the scorecard look ugly. It's another thing to do it the way the Oilers did tonight. 60% of the shots on goal, 60% of the scoring chances, 58% of the high danger chances, and 64% of the expected goals tonight. And that tells you the Oilers had a multifaceted and layer approach. And when the Oilers have been at their best in the playoffs this year, whether we're going to talk about that third period and overtime against against LA, you want to talk about Game 5 in LA, you want to talk about Game 1 of this series, and then tonight, when the Oilers have been right, it has been a beautiful marriage. And I'm working on something for my Substack, shameless plug here, that we're rebranding, and it's going to be called We're So Back Sports. And I'm slowly putting together how a Stanley Cup championship caliber team needs to play. And one of the conclusions I've started to draw in doing my research, it's not done yet. It probably won't be done until the end of the week, even though I probably should be putting it out sooner. But one of the real big takeaways I am gleaning from my research, and the Oilers are showcasing, you need to have a variety of ways to beat your opponents. It can't just be your big guys eating. It can't just be your depth guys outlasting the other team's depth. It can't just be your special teams. You need a little bit of everything. You need a bit of a smorgasbord approach to building your team and how your team produces. And I think a really good way to describe this is the difference in how high-end players play versus how less skilled players play. And if you want to talk about it in terms of just who plays with who and the style of play they have, it's really, really interesting to watch, because the Oilers have different combinations they break out at different game states. And we haven't talked about the lineup changes. Troy Stetcher drawing in for Ty Emberson and Victor Arvidsson coming out in favor of Kasperi Kapanen, and what those do. And Kapanen, whatever, he's only playing 11, 12 minutes. He's mostly out there for energy, to forecheck, to be a pain. He was effective tonight. And I thought Stetcher had a couple nice hits. He had the one sequence of Brett Howden where he got the cut across the bridge of his nose. But all in all, you got good performances there. And one thing that really put a smile on my face was third period of this game, the Oilers are protecting the lead. What does Chris Knobloch go to? He goes to old reliable. He breaks out Leon Draisaitl, Kasperi Kapanen, and Vasily Podkolzin to salt this game away. The guy who's a Hart Trophy finalist, playing on a line, a top 6 line, with a guy the Oilers claimed off of waivers when they only had 10 healthy forwards, and Vasily Podkolzin, who was playing 10-20 a night last year for the Canucks on their fourth line. And to their credit, in the regular season, when that line was working, the Oilers were playing pretty well from the end of November through early to mid-January. And that line was heavily featured. And you know why? Because Podkolzin is a menace on the forecheck, and so is Kapanen. So what does that do? You put an all-time great playmaker in Draisaitl, who is a better facilitator than he is a shooter. And the guy won the Rocket Richard. That's how good he is. His secondary trait, he won the award for being the best at it. And those guys just funnel him pucks over and over and over again. And in tonight's game, it was more of a salt the game away, where you want to distribute your forecheckers to cycle, to burn clock. And that's really the key here. The Oilers can beat you off of the rush. You saw the Evander Kane goal. They can beat you down low. You saw the Adam Henrique goals. And you always have the lurking, like the shark in Jaws. You always have Connor and Leon just out there in the distance. Dun, 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 dun. And at a moment's notice, Connor or Leon can strike. But if that's not there, It's not like years past where that is a fatal flaw, where if they can't score on the power play or if they don't get the one big save. And to be fair, they definitely have needed the one big save at points in some of these games they've lost. But the Oilers have multiple paths to victory, and that is maybe the most enviable position to be in as far as your paths to winning a championship, because you need to be able to win the 5-4 shootout. You need to be able to win the 3-2, 2-1 rock fight.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite teams or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into same-game parlays for a chance to win big. I've got some action on the PGA Championship this weekend. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
The Cincinnati Bengals offseason has been nothing if not dramatic, tiresome, certainly dramatic. More contract drama.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast.
Trey Hendrickson's pissed. Let's call it like it is. He's mad. I'll read the statement in just a second that he gave to Adam Schefter, but Trey Hendrickson wants a new deal, and it's May 12th. And I hate to pat ourselves on the back, but guess what? I will. Remember after they got Jamar and T done, and there were all these reports that were like, oh, the focus is on Trey Hendrickson. And these Twitter insiders were like, I'm hearing that the Bengals and Trey. And then you had the national folks. Like, it's for the past 2 months, it seems like anytime Trey's brought up, it's optimistic. Even still, there's some optimism. That's fine. But there has been nothing moving, been no movement. The reason I would pat ourselves on the back is we said it was going to take some time, and I still think it's going to take some time. It doesn't feel imminent by any stretch. But Trey is clearly upset here with this process, and the thing about communication is amplified. I wonder what his next step is if it continues to go this route. But let's read the statement here that he gave to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Quote, no communication has taken place between my camp and the organization post-draft. The offers prior to the draft did not reflect the vision we shared and were promised last offseason if I continue to play at a high level. Coaches are aware of these past conversations. Rather than using collaboration to get us to the point to bring me home to the team, they are no longer communicating. I've been eagerly awaiting a resolution of this situation, but that's hard to do when there is no discussion and an evident lack of interest in reaching mutual goals. Trey Hendrickson not feeling the love, doesn't feel cared for, doesn't feel any of that. And I think that's part of it too, man. I think he wants to feel the love and get paid. And the Bengals certainly haven't communicated enough to make him feel wanted or valued. And at some point, maybe they pay him, but that point doesn't feel like it's going to be Monday, May 12th or Tuesday, May 13th, 5/13 day.
There are so many elements of this that are recurring themes. They didn't pay T and Jamar early or Trey early. They could have started a negotiation with Trey Hendrickson late last summer, a year after he had agreed to the previous extension. But instead they said, we'll get it done next year. And so there's this element of we'll take care of you later. There's this element of now things cost more because they waited, and it costs more for the receivers. And so they have less money than they otherwise could have had if they had gotten those receiver deals done proactively. And you're sick of me saying this, I'm sure, if you're listening, the Eagles would have gotten those deals done as soon as they possibly could. And the Eagles aren't the only team in the NFL that would have gotten those deals done aggressively. Another part here that is an ongoing trend is this lack of communication that we've heard multiple Bengals players or ex-Bengals players discuss when it comes to contract negotiations with the team, to the point where it's fair to suspect that this is a tactic from the team, that they go silent at points when negotiations get hard as part of a negotiating tactic. Is that something that they're doing intentionally, or is it that they simply can't multitask? Because those seem to be the two possibilities to me. Either they're so busy with figuring out Shamar Stewart and Demetrius Knight and the stadium lease, and they were so busy getting all the undrafted free agents done and the other rookie contracts ironed out that they haven't been able to get back to Trey Hendrickson yet, or they are doing this on purpose. Those are a couple of possibilities there. And the other thing that is certainly true in all of this that is not a criticism of the team is that the team got Trey Hendrickson on a great deal for the team that does not any longer reflect Trey Hendrickson's market value. But he agreed to the original deal and he agreed to the 1-year extension. And so that is part of the issue here as well, is that he is under contract this year. And while he is certainly not getting paid market value, and other teams would certainly approach this differently, for the Bengals and their perspective, they're seeing a player that is a bargain this year, who's played at a great high level for them the last 2 years, who is over 30, and they certainly fear will fall off a cliff at any moment because that's the way the Bengals think. And they're thinking, why would we give this guy a crazy contract? And so there are all these different factors here that are themes and recurring themes for this front office that I'm not excusing the front office, to be abundantly clear here, but it's not necessarily anything new. It's the same problems or ongoing problems.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And as you were breaking that down, especially at the end there, the age and all that stuff, it's like, okay, well, that's why you added all these other pieces, right? Like I like you plan to make Trey play it out because you've added and you've added all these other pieces to replenish the defense and bolster the offensive line into. Oh wait, you didn't add a veteran in the offensive line room. That's a proven starter and clear upgrade. You didn't add multiple pass rushers or veterans to multiple levels of your defense in free agency. Like not starters, not starting caliber. Right. It's like, oh, well, what the hell were you doing? And that's what's so it depends on both sides of this, because I do think the Bengals are going to approach Trey and try to get something done with him. I also think they clearly are looking at it like you said. And so does that mean that they insult him? Because when you see that statement or read that statement or just heard that statement, it's May 12th. If they at any point got close, I'm not sure Trey is reaching out to Adam Schefter. I'm not sure Trey Hendrickson goes on Pat McAfee last month. I mean, this has been a pretty consistent thing now where you have multiple we've seen Trey at least do 4 national interviews / statements. You had the statement to Schefter. You have 2 McAfee appearances. If you go back to the Super Bowl, I think he went on Ross Tucker or one of those other NFL pods as well. So it's at least 4 to 5 this offseason, and none of them have felt like at any point he was encouraged by talks. And I'm sure I don't think this is going to get quieter, put it that way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. But it feels like it's only going to get louder and become more of a distraction the longer it goes on. And it's probably the only leverage Trey has. So brace yourself, because it might get worse before it gets better.
I'm sure everyone is just thrilled, looking forward to another training camp with contract drama for an important veteran. Aren't you excited?
Is that Trey Hendrickson? Oh, Trey Hendrickson's here in a ball cap. Here's Trey Hendrickson. Here's a video of Trey Hendrickson walking out to practice. I do not want to do that. The Bengals shouldn't either.